The Great Hall of the Federation Council was a marvel of ancient engineering. Its walls stretched upward for hundreds of meters, carved from the living rock of the asteroid Calvex Prime over 12,000 years ago. Crystals embedded in the ceiling cast a soft blue glow over the assembled delegates, each one representing a species that had joined the galactic community. There were the Velthari, tall and thin with silver skin that reflected light like mirrors. The Kranash sat in reinforced chairs, their massive bodies covered in thick brown scales. The Mindori floated in specially designed tanks of purple liquid, their tentacles pressed against the glass as they observed the proceedings through dozens of eyes. Ambassador Chen Wei stood at the center of the chamber, feeling very small. She was the first human to address the Federation Council, and the weight of that honor pressed down on her shoulders like a physical force. Humanity had only made contact with the galactic community 5 years ago, and they were still considered newcomers. Children, really, compared to species that had been traveling between stars for millennia. The High Chancellor of the Council, a Velthari named Sovereign Aldris, raised one long arm to signal for silence. The chamber, which had been filled with the various sounds of 100 different species communicating, fell quiet. "We have gathered today to discuss a matter of great importance," Sovereign Aldris announced. His voice was transmitted directly into Chen Wei's translation device, which rendered his words in Mandarin. "The humans have been among us for 5 standard cycles now. In that time they have shown themselves to be eager learners, but there have been reports, disturbing reports." Chen Wei felt her stomach tighten. She had known this meeting would not be easy, but the word disturbing worried her deeply. A Kranash delegate named General Torvak rose from his seat. His voice was like rocks grinding together. "The humans have been questioning our methods. They do not accept the traditional ways that have served the Federation for thousands of years. They ask why things are done in certain ways. They suggest changes. This is not the behavior of newcomers who should be grateful for our guidance." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Chen Wei noticed many of the delegates nodding their heads or making gestures that her cultural database identified as signs of approval. "With respect," Chen Wei began, stepping forward. Her voice echoed in the vast space. "May I speak in defense of my people?" Sovereign Aldris tilted his head, his large purple eyes studying her. "You may, Ambassador. That is why you were summoned here today." Chen Wei took a deep breath. "The humans who have been asking questions mean no disrespect. Our species has always valued curiosity. We learn by asking why. We improve by challenging assumptions. This is not rebellion. This is how we grow." "Growth?" General Torvak laughed, a harsh sound. "Your species has been traveling in space for less than a century. We Kranash have been building star fleets for 15,000 years. What can you possibly teach us about growth?" "Perhaps nothing," Chen Wei admitted. "Or perhaps everything. I do not know yet, but I ask the Council to consider something. Have you ever wondered if there might be better ways to do the things you have always done?" The chamber fell silent again, but this time the silence felt different. It was the silence of shock. A Mindori delegate, whose name translated roughly to "thoughts like water," pressed closer to the glass of their tank. Their voice came through as a strange musical tone. "The humans ask a dangerous question. To question the traditional methods is to suggest that our ancestors were wrong. This is offensive to many species in this chamber." Chen Wei shook her head. "Not wrong, never wrong. Your ancestors did the best they could with what they knew, but knowledge grows, understanding deepens. What was the best solution 1,000 years ago might not be the best solution today. Is it truly disrespectful to your ancestors to take what they built and make it even better?" Sovereign Aldris held up his hand again, stopping the rumble of voices that had started to rise. "Ambassador Chen, you speak of improvement, but the methods of the Federation have been refined over countless generations. They are the product of the greatest minds of 100 species. Do you truly believe that your young species, barely out of infancy, has something to offer that we have not already considered. This was the moment Chen Wei had been waiting for. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. "May I present a demonstration, Sovereign?" The Velthari looked uncertain, but he nodded slowly. "You may." Chen Wei pressed a button on the device, and a holographic display appeared above her head. It showed a simple diagram of a Federation cargo ship, one of the standard designs that had been in use for over 2,000 years. "This is the Galvex 7 cargo vessel," she explained. "It has been the backbone of Federation trade for 2,300 years. It is reliable, it is efficient, it is considered perfect." General Torvak grunted. "Because it is perfect, every aspect of its design has been optimized through centuries of refinement." "I understand," Chen Wei said. "But when human engineers first saw this design, they asked a simple question. Why are the cargo bays arranged in this particular pattern?" She manipulated the hologram, highlighting the cargo storage areas of the ship. "According to Federation records, the answer is that this is how cargo bays have always been arranged. The design was passed down from the original Velthari trading vessels, and each generation of engineers kept the same basic layout because it worked." Sovereign Aldris shifted in his seat. "This is true. The arrangement has proven itself over thousands of years of successful operation." "Yes," Chen Wei agreed. "But when our engineers analyzed the design, they discovered something interesting. The original Velthari vessels were powered by fusion reactors that generated a specific type of radiation field. The cargo bay arrangement was designed to protect goods from that radiation." She paused, letting her words sink in. "The Federation switched to quantum pulse engines over 1,800 years ago. Those engines produce no harmful radiation at all. There is no longer any need to arrange the cargo bays in this particular pattern. Yet for 1,800 years, every cargo ship has been built with this same layout." The chamber had gone very quiet. Chen Wei pressed another button, and the hologram shifted to show a modified design. "Our engineers suggested a new arrangement. By repositioning the cargo bays, we can increase storage capacity by 31% while also reducing the structural stress on the hull. The ships would carry more cargo, last longer, and require less fuel to operate." General Torvak stood up suddenly. "This is impossible. Our engineers have studied these ships for millennia. If such an improvement existed, we would have discovered it." "Your engineers are brilliant," Chen Wei said gently. "But they never thought to ask why the cargo bays were arranged that way in the first place. They assumed there was a good reason, because there had always been a reason in the past. They trusted the traditional methods so completely that they never questioned them." Thoughts like water made a strange bubbling sound in their tank. "This is one example, one small thing. It does not prove that questioning traditional methods is wise." Chen Wei smiled. "You are correct, but this is not the only example. In the 5 years since humans joined the Federation, we have asked many questions. We have looked at processes and procedures and designs that have been unchanged for centuries, and we have wondered why they are the way they are. Sometimes we find that there is a very good reason, but sometimes we find that the only reason is because it has always been done that way." She pressed another button, and the hologram expanded to show a long list of items. "These are the improvements that human engineers have suggested based on their questioning of traditional methods. 47 different systems, medical protocols that could save thousands of lives each year, manufacturing processes that could reduce waste by half, communication networks that could transmit data 3 times faster, agricultural techniques that could feed billions more people." The delegates were staring at the list, their various expressions difficult for Chen Wei to read. "We are not disrespecting your traditions," she continued. "We are honoring them. Every one of these suggestions is built on the foundation that your species created. We are not tearing down what you have built. We are trying to build it higher." Sovereign Aldris leaned back in his chair, his silver skin shimmering as he moved. "You speak well, Ambassador, but there is a danger in what you propose. The traditional methods exist for many reasons, not all of them obvious. If we begin changing things without understanding why they were done in the first place, we might create problems we cannot foresee." "That is true," Chen Wei acknowledged. "Which is why we do not suggest blind change. We suggest investigation. Every question we ask leads to deeper understanding. When we find that a traditional method exists for a good reason, we leave it alone. When we find that a method exists only out of habit, we consider whether improvement is possible. Is that not what any intelligent species should do?" The chamber erupted into conversation, dozens of species all talking at once in their various languages and methods of communication. Chen Wei stood quietly, waiting for order to be restored. General Torvak was shaking his massive head. "This will lead to chaos. If everyone starts questioning everything, nothing will remain stable. The Federation has lasted for 12,000 years because we respect the wisdom of those who came before us." "Respect does not mean blind acceptance," Chen Wei replied. "I respect my grandmother very much. She taught me many things, but she also taught me to think for myself, to question, to learn. That is the greatest gift she gave me. I believe your ancestors would say the same." She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of as many delegates as she could. "My people have a saying. We stand on the shoulders of giants. It means that everything we achieve is built on the work of those who came before. But standing on their shoulders also means we can see farther than they could. If they were here today, I believe they would want us to use that view to find new paths forward." Sovereign Aldris raised his hand once more, and the chamber fell silent. His expression was thoughtful, his purple eyes half closed. "The Council will consider the matter," he announced. "Ambassador Chen, you have given us much to think about. We will observe the humans more closely in the coming cycles. If what you say is true, if your questioning leads to genuine improvement without causing harm, then perhaps we have been too quick to judge." Chen Wei bowed her head respectfully. "That is all we ask, Sovereign, the chance to prove ourselves." As she was escorted from the chamber, she could hear the delegates continuing to debate among themselves. The conversation that had begun today would not end quickly, but that was exactly what she had hoped for. The first step toward change was always a question. And humans were very good at asking questions. The weeks following Chen Wei's address to the Federation Council were tense. Human ambassadors and engineers throughout the galaxy reported being watched more closely, their every action scrutinized. Some species viewed them with suspicion. Others showed a cautious curiosity. But slowly, carefully, the humans continued to do what they did best. They asked questions. Dr. Sarah Martinez was stationed on the medical research vessel Horizon's Hope, a massive ship that served as a hospital and laboratory for the northern sectors of Federation space. She was one of only 3 humans assigned to the crew of 600, and she had spent her first year simply learning. The medical knowledge of the Federation was vast, accumulated over millennia of study by dozens of species. But now she had started asking questions. "I do not understand your concern," said Chief Medical Officer Valdris, a Mindori whose tank had been fitted with mechanical arms that allowed them to perform surgery. "The treatment protocol for Kranash bone infections has been the same for over 4,000 years. It works." Sarah nodded, studying the medical readouts on her console. "Yes, it works, but the recovery time is very long, 8 to 12 standard weeks according to the records, and there is a high rate of complications." "That is the nature of Kranash biology," Valdris replied. "Their skeletal structure is extremely dense. The infection must be treated slowly to avoid damaging healthy tissue." "I understand," Sarah said, "but I have been studying the treatment protocol and I noticed something. The antibiotic solution that is used was developed by Velthari scientists, correct?" Valdris made a sound like water flowing over rocks, which Sarah's translator identified as mild interest. Yes, the Velthari have always been leaders in pharmaceutical development. The solution works by bonding with certain minerals in the infected bone tissue, Sarah continued. But Kranash bone contains a much higher concentration of these minerals than Velthari bone. That is why the treatment takes so long and causes so many side effects. The solution is working overtime, bonding with healthy minerals as well as infected ones. Valdris was quiet for a moment, their many eyes studying Sarah through the glass of their tank. What are you suggesting? Sarah pulled up a chemical formula on her console. I have been working with the human chemistry team on a modified solution. It bonds more specifically with the infection markers rather than the minerals themselves. In computer simulations, it reduces recovery time by 60% and eliminates most of the common side effects. Computer simulations are not the same as actual treatment, Valdris said carefully. No, they are not, but the simulations were thorough. I would like permission to test the modified solution on the next Kranash patient who comes in with a bone infection, if they agree to participate. Valdris was silent for a long time. Sarah waited, knowing that pushing too hard would only make things worse. The Federation species were accustomed to thinking in terms of centuries, not weeks. They did not respond well to pressure. Finally, Valdris spoke. I will review your research. If I find no significant flaws, I will consider your request. Thank you, Sarah said. That is all I ask. 2 weeks later, a Kranash freighter captain named Bractes arrived at the hospital with a severe bone infection in his left arm. He was in great pain, and the standard treatment would leave him unable to work for months. When Sarah explained the alternative treatment, with full disclosure of the risks and the experimental nature of the approach, Bractes agreed immediately. If there is a chance it will work faster, I will take it, he rumbled. I have cargo to deliver, contracts to fulfill. Months of lying in a medical bed is not acceptable. Valdris performed the treatment personally, with Sarah assisting. The modified antibiotic solution was administered carefully, monitored at every stage, and within 3 weeks, Bractes was fully recovered. The word spread quickly through the medical community. Other Kranash patients began requesting the human treatment. More modifications were tested, and slowly, the standard protocol that had been in use for 4,000 years began to change. But not everyone was pleased. At the same time, human engineers aboard the Federation shipyard Stellar Forge were having their own struggles. Lead engineer Marcus Cole had submitted 17 proposals for improvements to various ship systems, and all 17 had been rejected. I do not understand, he said to the Velthari supervisor, a stern woman named High Engineer Velaris. I have shown you the simulations. The modifications work. They improve efficiency, reduce fuel consumption, increase safety margins. Why are they being rejected? Velaris looked at him with an expression that might have been pity. You do not understand our way, Engineer Cole. Each of these systems was designed by masters of their craft. To change them without proper authorization is to disrespect their legacy. Then how do I get proper authorization? You must submit your proposals to the Engineering Council of your home sector. They will review your work and, if they approve, forward it to the Regional Engineering Authority. That body will conduct their own review and, if they approve, submit the proposals to the Federation Engineering Commission. The commission meets once every 5 standard years to consider major changes to approved designs. Marcus stared at her. 5 years, just to have the proposal considered. That is the traditional process, Velaris confirmed. It ensures that changes are made carefully and thoughtfully. Many proposals are rejected at various stages, as they should be. Only the most thoroughly tested improvements are eventually approved. But the improvements I am suggesting could save lives right now. The emergency power distribution system I designed could prevent cascade failures during combat. Ships are destroyed every year because of those failures. People are dying while we wait for bureaucratic approval. Velaris's expression hardened. You speak as if our system is flawed, but it has served the Federation for millennia. Your species has been in space for less than a century. Perhaps you should spend more time learning and less time criticizing. Marcus took a deep breath, forcing himself to remain calm. I am not criticizing. I am trying to help. Is there no faster way to test new ideas? The traditional process exists for good reasons, Velaris said firmly. I suggest you respect it. But Marcus was human, and humans were not good at accepting the word no. He began working after hours, using his personal time and resources to build a small prototype of his emergency power system. It took him months of work, scavenging parts and writing code and running tests in his tiny quarters. But eventually, he had a working model. And then fate intervened. The Stellar Forge was attacked by raiders, a band of criminals who preyed on Federation shipping lanes. During the battle, a power surge damaged the main reactor, creating exactly the kind of cascade failure that Marcus had designed his system to prevent. The shipyard's emergency protocols activated, but they were not fast enough. Explosions ripped through several decks. People were killed. Marcus, acting on instinct, connected his prototype to the secondary power grid. The device activated, redirecting and stabilizing the power flow. The cascade stopped. The shipyard was saved. In the aftermath, as the crew worked to repair the damage and mourn the dead, High Engineer Velaris summoned Marcus to her office. Her silver face was unreadable. Your unauthorized device, she said. It saved the shipyard. Yes, Marcus replied simply. How long have you been working on it? 7 months. Velaris was quiet for a long time. Then she reached across her desk and touched a control panel. I am transmitting your design specifications directly to the Federation Engineering Commission, marked as Priority 1. I am also including my personal recommendation for immediate testing and deployment. Marcus was stunned. I thought the traditional process requires 5 years. The traditional process allows for emergency exceptions in cases of immediate importance. Velaris looked at him with her large purple eyes. I did not tell you about that option because I did not believe your designs warranted it. I was wrong. Thank you, Marcus said. Velaris held up one long finger. Do not thank me yet. You violated regulations by building an unauthorized device on this shipyard. There will be consequences for that. But your device also saved many lives. The consequences will be balanced against that. She stood and walked to the window of her office, looking out at the stars. Your species frustrates me, she admitted. You do not follow rules. You do not respect tradition. You are impatient and impulsive and sometimes foolish. She turned to face him. But you are also creative in ways that I do not fully understand. Your minds work differently than ours. Perhaps there is value in that difference. I hope so, Marcus said. We shall see. The Council is watching your people very closely. Every action, every suggestion, every question you ask is being recorded and analyzed. If your creativity proves beneficial, things may change. If it proves dangerous, things will also change, but not in ways you will like. Marcus nodded, understanding the warning. We will do our best to prove ourselves. See that you do. As Marcus left Velaris's office, he allowed himself a small smile. Progress was slow, but it was happening. One question at a time, one improvement at a time, one step at a time. Back on Earth, Ambassador Chen Wei was reviewing reports from human personnel throughout the Federation. The pattern was clear. Wherever humans were assigned, they were asking questions, and slowly, reluctantly, the Federation was beginning to listen. But she also saw the resistance, the complaints, the anger from those who saw human curiosity as a threat to their traditions. The balance was delicate. One wrong move, One question asked too loudly or too aggressively, and the fragile progress they had made could be destroyed. She sat back in her chair, looking at the stars through her window. Humanity had traveled so far in such a short time. They had gone from primitive rockets to faster-than-light travel in less than 100 years. They had joined a galactic community that had existed for millennia, and now they were facing their greatest challenge yet. Could they convince the ancient species of the Federation that change was not the enemy? Chen Wei did not know the answer, but she knew that giving up was not an option. Humans had never been good at giving up. It was one of their greatest strengths, and one of their greatest weaknesses. She reached for her communication device and began composing a message to all human personnel throughout Federation space. It was time to remind them of who they were and what they were trying to accomplish. It was time to remind them that sometimes the most powerful thing in the universe was a simple question. Why? 6 months after the incident at the Stellar Forge, the Federation Council convened for a special session. The topic was not on the regular agenda. It had been added at the request of several senior delegates who had been watching the humans with increasing interest and concern. Ambassador Chen Wei was once again called to address the chamber. But this time, she was not alone. Standing beside her were Dr. Sarah Martinez, Engineer Marcus Cole, and a dozen other humans who had been making waves throughout the Federation with their questions and suggestions. Sovereign Aldris looked down at the assembled humans from his elevated position. His expression was difficult to read, but Chen Wei thought she detected a hint of curiosity that had not been there before. The Council has received many reports about human activities over the past cycles, the Sovereign announced. We have heard of treatments improved and systems redesigned. We have heard of traditions questioned and methods challenged. The time has come to discuss what this means for the Federation as a whole. General Torvak was the first to speak. The humans have shown no respect for our ways. They change things without permission. They ignore proper procedures. They act as if their young species knows better than civilizations that have existed for tens of thousands of years. They also saved the Stellar Forge, came a voice from across the chamber. Chen Wei turned to see who had spoken and was surprised to find it was a Velthari engineer named High Engineer Velaris. The human engineer Marcus Cole created a device that prevented a catastrophic cascade failure. His unauthorized actions saved hundreds of lives. General Torvak snorted. One lucky accident does not justify systematic disrespect for tradition. Thoughts like water rippled in their tank. The Mindori have observed the humans closely. They are different from us. They think in ways we do not understand. Their minds make connections that seem random but often prove valuable. This is not disrespect. This is simply how they are built. Are you suggesting we should change our entire society to accommodate one young species? Torvak demanded. I am suggesting that we have much to learn from each other, Thoughts Like Water replied. For 12,000 years, the Federation has grown by incorporating new species and new ideas. Each species that joined us brought something unique. The Kranash brought strength and durability. The Velthari brought scientific precision. The Mindori brought patience and long-term thinking. Perhaps the humans bring creativity and the willingness to question. Chen Wei stepped forward. If I may, Sovereign. Aldris nodded. Speak, Ambassador. The humans do not want to destroy what the Federation has built. We admire it. We are grateful to be part of it, but we are also incapable of simply accepting things the way they are. Our species evolved on a dangerous world, surrounded by threats. We survived by adapting, by changing, by constantly looking for better ways to do things. That is in our nature. She gestured to the humans standing beside her. Each of these individuals has made suggestions or asked questions that led to improvements in their fields. Dr. Martinez helped develop a new treatment protocol that has already saved dozens of Kranash lives. Engineer Cole created a safety system that is now being installed on ships throughout the Federation. Others have contributed in smaller ways, but every contribution matters. And what of the disruption? Torvak demanded. What of the confusion and the arguments and the resistance to their meddling? Change is always difficult, Chenwei acknowledged. But growth requires change. The Federation has not survived for 12,000 years by remaining static. It has survived by adapting to new challenges, by incorporating new members, by evolving. The humans offer the Federation something it has been lacking for a very long time. And what is that? Sovereign Aldris asked. Fresh eyes, Chenwei said simply. We look at your systems and your methods and your traditions without the weight of millennia of assumptions. We see things that you cannot see because you are too close to them. Not because we are smarter or better, but because we are different. A murmur went through the chamber. Chenwei could see delegates talking among themselves, debating what they had heard. Dr. Martinez stepped forward nervously. May I share my perspective, Sovereign? Aldris considered for a moment, then nodded. Sarah swallowed hard, trying to control her nerves. When I first arrived on the Horizon's Hope, I spent an entire year just learning. The medical knowledge of the Federation is incredible. Your scientists have cured diseases that my species has struggled with for centuries. Your surgical techniques are beyond anything we ever imagined. I have nothing but respect for what you have accomplished. But, Torvak prompted. But I also noticed things that seemed strange to me. Treatments that worked well enough but could be improved. Procedures that were more complicated than they needed to be. Protocols that existed for historical reasons that were no longer relevant. When I asked about these things, I was often told that they had always been done that way, that the traditional methods were the best methods. She paused, gathering her thoughts. On my world, we have a story about a young cook who always cut the ends off a roast before putting it in the oven. When asked why, she said it was because her mother had always done it that way. When her mother was asked, she said it was because her mother had always done it that way. Finally, someone asked the grandmother, and she laughed. She cut the ends off the roast because her oven was too small to fit the whole thing. Several delegates looked confused, but Chenwei saw understanding dawn on a few faces. The point of the story is that we often continue doing things in certain ways without understanding why those ways exist, Sarah continued. Sometimes the reasons are good. Sometimes the reasons made sense long ago but no longer apply. The only way to know the difference is to ask questions. Sovereign Aldris leaned forward slightly. And you believe that your questioning has helped? I believe it has started important conversations, Sarah replied. Not all of my suggestions have been accepted, and that is as it should be, but some have been tried and some have worked. The new bone infection treatment has reduced Kronash recovery times significantly. Other species have begun asking for similar reviews of their traditional treatments. Change is happening slowly, but it is happening. Engineer Marcus Cole cleared his throat. May I also speak? Aldris nodded again. I was punished for building an unauthorized device on the Stellar Forge, Marcus said. I accept that I broke the rules and I understand why those rules exist, but I would do it again because the device saved lives. Sometimes rules need to be broken. Sometimes tradition needs to be challenged, not out of disrespect but out of necessity. That is a dangerous philosophy, General Torvak growled. It is a human philosophy, Marcus replied. We are not saying that all traditions are bad or that all rules should be ignored. We are saying that traditions and rules should be examined periodically to make sure they still serve their purpose. That is not destruction. That is maintenance. The chamber erupted into debate once more. Chenwei watched as delegates argued among themselves, some defending the humans and others attacking them. It was chaotic, but it was also exactly what needed to happen. These conversations had been avoided for too long. The Federation had grown comfortable in its ways, resistant to change, suspicious of new ideas. The humans were forcing them to reconsider. After nearly an hour of debate, Sovereign Aldris raised his hand for silence. The chamber slowly quieted. "The Council has heard much today," he announced. "We have heard arguments for tradition and arguments for change. We have heard examples of human creativity improving Federation systems, and we have heard concerns about the disruption this creativity causes. It is clear that there is no simple answer to the question of how to handle our newest members." He paused, his purple eyes sweeping across the assembled delegates. "I propose a formal experiment. For the next 5 standard cycles, humans will be given expanded authority to suggest improvements to Federation systems. Each suggestion will be reviewed by a joint committee consisting of humans and representatives of the relevant traditional authorities. If a suggestion has merit, it will be tested carefully. If it proves beneficial, it will be implemented. If it proves harmful, it will be rejected, and the humans responsible will face appropriate consequences." General Torvak stood angrily. "This is madness. You would give these children authority over systems that have served us for millennia." "I would give them a chance to prove themselves," Aldris replied calmly. "The humans have shown that they are capable of both great insight and great foolishness. This experiment will determine which quality dominates. If they succeed, the Federation will benefit. If they fail, we will know that our traditional methods are the best after all." The vote was close, but in the end the proposal passed. The humans would be given their chance. As Chen Wei led her people out of the chamber, she felt a mix of triumph and worry. They had won a great victory, but they had also taken on an enormous responsibility. The future of human-Federation relations now depended on the actions of every human throughout the galaxy. "Ambassador," Marcus said quietly, walking beside her, "what do we do now?" Chen Wei looked at him, then at the rest of the humans following her. They were scientists and engineers, doctors and artists, soldiers and diplomats. Each one represented something unique about the human spirit. "Now we prove that we deserve this chance," she said. "We ask questions, we make suggestions, we improve what we can and accept what we cannot, and we do it all with respect for the traditions we are challenging. We are not here to tear down what others have built, we are here to help build it higher." Sarah nodded seriously. "That is a lot of pressure." "Yes," Chen Wei agreed. "But pressure is what creates diamonds, and humanity has always been at its best when the stakes were highest." They walked out into the artificial sunlight of Calvex Prime, facing an uncertain future, but carrying with them the one thing that had always defined their species: the courage to ask why. The experiment began slowly. Human personnel throughout the Federation were informed of the new arrangement and given guidelines for how to submit their suggestions. Joint committees were established, consisting of humans working alongside representatives from traditional authorities. Everything was recorded, analyzed, and scrutinized. And slowly, the improvements began to pile up. On the agricultural world of Verdant Prime, human botanists questioned why crops were planted in the same patterns that had been used for 6,000 years. They discovered that the patterns had been designed for a strain of plant that had been replaced centuries ago, and that new arrangements could increase yields by 15%. The traditional authorities were skeptical at first, but test plots proved the humans right. In the communications relay network that connected Federation worlds, human engineers wondered why signals were processed in a specific sequence. Investigation revealed that the sequence had been designed to work around a technical limitation in ancient equipment that had been replaced long ago. A new sequence reduced transmission delays by nearly 20%. On the fortress worlds that guarded against external threats, human tactical analysts asked why defensive systems were positioned in certain configurations. They discovered that the configurations were based on battles fought millennia ago, against enemies who no longer existed. New positions, based on current threat assessments, significantly improved defensive coverage. Not every suggestion worked. Some human ideas were rejected after testing proved them inferior to traditional methods. Some ideas caused unexpected problems that took months to fix, but overall, the trend was positive. Human creativity was proving its worth. And the other species of the Federation began to take notice. 2 years into the experiment, something remarkable started happening. Non-humans began asking questions too. A young Kronish engineer named Bractes Jr., the son of the freighter captain who had benefited from Dr. Martinez's improved treatment, submitted a proposal for modifying the cooling systems on Kronish warships. He had noticed that the current design was based on specifications from a time when Kronish ships ran much hotter due to older reactor technology. The new reactors did not generate as much heat, meaning the cooling systems were over-engineered and wasteful. "I never would have thought to question this before," he told Marcus Cole during a joint review session. "It was just how things were. But watching you humans, seeing how you look at everything with fresh eyes, it made me wonder what I might be missing." Similar stories emerged throughout the Federation. A Mindori researcher questioned why certain experiments were conducted in a specific order and discovered a more efficient approach. A Velthari administrator wondered why personnel were assigned according to ancient protocols and found that updated assignments could improve efficiency significantly. The humans had not just contributed their own ideas, they had inspired others to think differently. Sovereign Aldris summoned Ambassador Chen Wei to a private meeting 3 years into the experiment. His office was a simple space, decorated with artifacts from Velthari history. He offered her a seat and poured 2 glasses of a traditional Velthari beverage. "I must admit," he said, settling into his own chair, "I did not expect things to go this well." Chen Wei accepted the glass, inhaling the sweet aroma. "Neither did I, Sovereign. We hoped, but hope is not the same as expectation." "Indeed." Aldris studied her with his large, purple eyes. "When you first addressed the Council, I thought you were naive. The Federation has existed for 12,000 years. The idea that a species as young as yours could offer meaningful improvement seemed absurd. And now I understand that I was the naive one." He sipped his drink thoughtfully. "I assumed that because our methods had worked for so long, they must be optimal. I forgot that optimization requires constant adjustment. We had stopped adjusting thousands of years ago." Chen Wei nodded. "It is easy to become comfortable with success. Comfort can be its own form of failure." "Yes, the humans have reminded us of that." Aldris set down his glass and leaned forward. "But I have a concern, Ambassador, one that I have not shared with the full Council." "What concern?" "The humans are changing us. That is clear. But I wonder if we are changing the humans as well. Your species is young. Your culture is still forming. If you spend too much time among ancient civilizations, questioning our traditions, will you remember to build traditions of your own?" Chen Wei considered this carefully. It was a question she had asked herself many times. "I believe that humanity's greatest tradition is the willingness to change," she said finally. "We do not hold on to ways simply because they are old. We evaluate, adapt, improve. That is who we are. It is not something we will lose by living among other species." "Are you certain?" "No," she admitted, "but I am hopeful, and hope combined with effort can accomplish remarkable things." Aldris smiled, a rare expression for a Velthari. "You are a wise woman, Ambassador. I am glad that fate brought our species together." "As am I, Sovereign." They finished their drinks in comfortable silence, 2 representatives of vastly different civilizations finding common ground. It was a small moment, but it represented something larger. The Federation was changing. Slowly, carefully, but unmistakably, and the changes were good. As Chen Wei walked back to her quarters, she thought about all the humans scattered throughout Federation space. Each one was a tiny spark of curiosity, lighting fires wherever they went. Some fires would burn out. Some would cause damage, but others would grow into beacons of progress, illuminating paths that had been hidden for millennia. That was the human way, not perfect, not always wise, but always moving forward. Always asking questions. Always searching for a better tomorrow. The experiment continued, and humanity continued to prove itself. There were setbacks, of course, failures and mistakes and moments of doubt, but the overall trajectory remained positive. Human creativity was becoming an integral part of Federation culture. And the galaxy was better for it. 5 years after the experiment began, the Federation Council convened to evaluate the results. The chamber was filled to capacity, every species represented, every delegate watching as Sovereign Aldris rose to address the assembly. "We have reached the end of our experiment," he announced. The humans were given expanded authority to suggest improvements to Federation systems, and they were held accountable for the results of those suggestions. The data has been collected. The outcomes have been analyzed. It is time to determine what happens next. Chen Wei stood in the center of the chamber, surrounded by the human delegation. They had done everything they could. Now their fate was in the hands of the council. General Torvak was the first to speak. "I have reviewed the military data. Human tactical suggestions have improved defensive efficiency by an average of 12% across all sectors. Combat casualties have decreased by 8%. Ship survival rates have increased by 14%. He paused, and Chen Wei was surprised to see something approaching respect in his ancient eyes. "I was wrong about the humans. Their creativity has value." Murmurs swept through the chamber. Torvak had been one of the strongest opponents of the experiment. His admission carried significant weight. Thoughts like water rippled forward. The scientific data shows similar results. Human questions have led to breakthroughs in medical treatment, materials science, and communications technology. The pace of innovation has increased significantly since the experiment began. The Mindori support continued integration of human creativity into Federation processes. One by one, delegates rose to share their findings. Agriculture, engineering, administration, education, all sectors showed improvement. The humans had delivered on their promise. Sovereign Aldris let the reports continue for nearly 2 hours, before raising his hand for silence. "The evidence is clear," he said. "Human creativity has benefited the Federation in numerous ways. Their willingness to question traditional methods has uncovered inefficiencies and outdated practices that we had overlooked for millennia. At the same time, their suggestions have been tempered by working with traditional authorities, preventing reckless changes that might have caused harm." He turned to face Chen Wei directly. "Ambassador, when you first stood in this chamber, you asked us to give your species a chance. You asked us to see questioning not as disrespect, but as a form of care. You asked us to believe that fresh eyes could help ancient civilizations see themselves more clearly." Chen Wei nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. "The council has deliberated. We have reached a unanimous decision." Aldris paused, letting the tension build. "The experiment will become permanent policy. Humans will be fully integrated into all Federation review processes. Furthermore, we will establish new positions specifically for individuals of any species who demonstrate the ability to question traditional methods constructively. We will call them investigators, and their job will be to ask why things are done the way they are and whether they could be done better." The chamber erupted into applause, a cacophony of different sounds and gestures as 100 species expressed their approval. Chen Wei felt tears running down her face, but she did not bother to wipe them away. They were tears of joy. "You have changed us, Ambassador," Aldris continued when the noise had subsided. "Not just through your suggestions and improvements, but through your example. You have reminded us that wisdom is not a destination. It is a journey, and journeys require movement." Chen Wei found her voice at last. "Thank you, Sovereign. On behalf of all humanity, thank you. We are honored to be part of the Federation, and we will continue to serve it with all our creativity and all our care. I have no doubt that you will. Aldris smiled that rare Velthari smile. And I have no doubt that you will continue to frustrate us, challenge us, and annoy us with your endless questions. But perhaps that is exactly what we need. A reminder that progress requires discomfort, that growth requires change. The session concluded with celebrations that lasted for days. Humans and non-humans mingled freely, sharing stories and ideas and hopes for the future. It was a new era for the Federation, one shaped by the unlikely arrival of a young species that refused to accept things simply because they had always been done that way. Chen Wei stood on a balcony overlooking the celebrations, watching the lights dance across the asteroid's surface. Dr. Martinez stood beside her, looking tired but happy. "We did it," Sarah said quietly. "I still can't quite believe it." "Neither can I," Chen Wei admitted. "When I first came here, I thought we were fighting against the tide of history. I thought we would be lucky to survive, let alone thrive." "What changed your mind?" Chen Wei considered the question. "I think it was realizing that the Federation wanted to change. They had just forgotten how. 12,000 years of tradition can become a prison if you are not careful. The other species were not opposed to new ideas. They had simply stopped having them." Marcus Cole joined them on the balcony, carrying 3 glasses of something that sparkled in the light. "To humanity," he said, offering them drinks. "To creativity," Sarah added. "To questions," Chen Wei finished. They raised their glasses and drank, 3 humans who had helped change the course of galactic history. Behind them, the celebrations continued. Before them, the stars stretched out in an infinite tapestry of possibilities. The Federation had existed for 12,000 years. It had overcome countless challenges, survived countless crises, incorporated countless species. But never before had it faced something quite like humanity. A species that simply could not stop asking why. A species that looked at the universe and saw not what was, but what could be. It was a gift and a curse, a blessing and a burden, but most of all it was human. And as Chen Wei looked out at the stars, she knew that humanity was just getting started. There were still countless questions to ask, countless traditions to examine, countless improvements to make. The galaxy would never be the same. And that, she thought with a smile, was exactly as it should be. In the years that followed, the concept of investigators spread throughout the Federation. Every species began training individuals to look at systems with fresh eyes, to ask difficult questions, to challenge assumptions. It was not easy. Tradition did not surrender without a fight. But slowly, the culture shifted. The Kranash established schools of tactical innovation, where young warriors learned to question battle doctrines that had existed for millennia. The Velthari created institutes of scientific inquiry, dedicated to re-examining fundamental assumptions about the universe. The Mindori developed new methods of long-term planning that incorporated regular reviews and adjustments. And through it all, the humans continued to ask questions. Some questions led nowhere. Some questions caused problems. But some questions changed everything. That was the nature of curiosity. You never knew which question would unlock a new understanding, which challenge would reveal a hidden truth, which improvement would transform the galaxy. The only way to find out was to keep asking. Ambassador Chen Wei eventually retired from diplomatic service, but she never stopped questioning. She wrote books about the early days of human Federation contact, helped train new generations of ambassadors, and advised the Council on matters of cultural integration. Dr. Sarah Martinez became the head of a new interspecies medical research facility, where scientists from dozens of species worked together to develop treatments that combine the best of all their traditions. Engineer Marcus Cole designed the first fully integrated human Federation starship, a vessel that incorporated innovations from every member species, along with dozens of new human ideas. Their stories became legends, told and retold across the galaxy, but they always insisted that they were not special. They were simply human, and being human meant being curious. It meant asking why. It meant looking at the universe and wondering how it could be better. It meant refusing to accept limits just because limits had always existed. The Federation had witnessed human creativity questioning traditional methods, and in doing so, it had witnessed the birth of a new era, an era of constant improvement, an era of endless possibilities, an era of questions. The Great Hall of the Federation Council still stood on Calvex Prime, its ancient walls now decorated with symbols representing every member species, including a new addition, a simple question mark, the universal symbol of human curiosity. It was a reminder to all who entered that the greatest wisdom was not in knowing all the answers. It was in never stopping to ask the questions.